Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. All right, you guys, peep game. All right, man, I want to talk about this segment that happened on First Take. I saw, basically the snippet of it, and I saw a debate that happened between Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, where it was basically talking about Carmelo Anthony. And what if he had been drafted number 2 by the Detroit Pistons? What could have been had he been drafted number 2, in case you guys don't know. And the 2003 draft class, which I think I think that class is stacked with Hall of Famers, borderline Hall of Famer, and future Hall of Famers. I mean, that draft was just stacked. A lot of solid players came out of that draft. LeBron James, of course, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, if I'm not mistaken, Kurt Heinrich, who had some solid years. Just that draft was stacked. For real. I'm going to do a video comparing that draft class with some of the other draft class. Maybe the 84 draft class, maybe the 85, maybe... I mean, for real. That draft class was stacked. Maybe the 1996 draft class. So yeah, man, I might do a video comparing those draft classes together, because I think we could have a friendly debate about what was the best draft class ever in the history of the NBA. But let me talk about Carmelo Anthony. As you guys know, Carmelo Anthony, if you look at his career, his numbers speak for themselves. His numbers say first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's without a shadow of a doubt. Now, will he get in on the first ballot? He should. But one of the biggest debates going into that 2003 draft class, keep in mind, Carmelo Anthony was coming off the national championship. He played 1 year with Syracuse, and he entered the NBA draft. Now, more than likely, if LeBron isn't in that draft class, maybe Carmelo Anthony possibly goes number 1 instead of number 2. But LeBron James was in that draft class, and we already know it was set in stone that LeBron James was the heir apparent to Michael Jordan. That's just fact. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about it. Now, you have the first 3 players picked. The first 4, you have LeBron James, number 1 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then you have Darko Milicic to the Detroit Pistons. Then you have Carmelo Anthony, number 3 to the Denver Nuggets. If I'm not mistaken, Dwayne Wade goes number 4, and then maybe Chris Bosh. If I'm not correct, then you can somebody in the comment section put who was the first 5 picked, or the first 6. But Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade is in that draft class as well. Chris Bosh more than likely will be elected into the National Basketball Association Hall of Fame this coming September, alongside Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and the late great Kobe Bryant. So I expect all 4 of them to get in on the first ballot. But if you look at the Detroit Pistons, I truly in my heart believe, had they took Carmelo Anthony number 2, I do believe that Detroit Piston team was good enough to get, at the minimum, at least 2 championships. I think they would have been a very good basketball team. I think they would have clearly been the best team in the Eastern Conference with Carmelo. But, there's always been this knack on Carmelo that he didn't play defense. Well, a lot of guys ain't defensively sound. I'm not going to lie, Stephen Curry isn't the best defensive player out there. He's not a lockdown defender. we already know that James Harden can't play defense to save his life. You know, asking James Harden to play defense is, I mean, for real. It's like asking Dikembe Mutombo basically to try to average 30 points a game. It's just not going to happen. But if you look at that Detroit team who went on to beat the Lakers in the finals with basically really no prohibited superstar, they had a bunch of solid players. They didn't have no superstar, but if you look who was on that team, you look at Rip Hamilton, you look at Chauncey Billups, you look at Rasheed Wallace, shout out to E40, Tayshaun Prince. Man, that team was stacked. I mean, you get Carmelo Anthony. Add him to the equation, and you make him basically a guy that just scores, where he's like the number one option by the time year 2 rolls in. And I understand why they didn't draft Carmelo Anthony, but it didn't make any kind of sense at the same time. Sometimes I think Joe Dumars was, I don't know, calling himself being politically correct by selecting a dude like Darko Milicic, because I just didn't see where Darko Milicic was a better overall player than Carmelo Anthony. I don't know if it was some kind of political thing why he didn't draft Carmelo Anthony, but if he was trying to make a political statement, that was the worst mistake he ever made. I just think Carmelo Anthony, if you find a way to make it work, because, you know, you have Rip Hamilton as the 2 guard, you had Tayshaun Prince as the small forward, Rasheed Wallace as the center power forward at times. I don't know. It could have worked. Chauncey Billups as the point guard. It could have worked. But then again, you wonder with Larry Brown, would it have worked? But Larry Brown went on to win a championship as they coached, the only championship he ever won. To me, I believe that it was Rick Carlisle's team. I think Rick Carlisle would have won a championship with that same Detroit Pistons team, but Rick Carlisle went on to win a championship with the Dallas Mavericks. I'm just not a Larry Brown guy. I'm sorry, I just don't like Larry Brown. Just do not like the dude at all. Can't stand him, as a matter of fact. But I'm thinking, you have Carmelo. Carmelo really doesn't have to concentrate fully on defense, because that's what you have the other guys there for. I think they would open up a lot of opportunities for Carmelo Anthony to flourish and be able to score points. I think all he would have to do is play minimal defense, and I think they'll be fine. But I think if he goes to Detroit, I do believe, I'm serious, I do believe that Detroit would have won maybe 2 championships. They went to a 7th game with the Spurs. They almost won that championship, but unfortunately they blew the lead down the line, and San Antonio was able to pull it off. And not taking away anything from San Antonio, it's just that San Antonio was that good. They had great players. But as I look at that Detroit team, yeah, I do think they would have been able to steal a championship or 2. Just like I believe that Warriors team had Don Nelson. Don Nelson had a chance to possibly compete for a ring 2 times. If he had found a way to make the Chris Webber thing work and put his ego to the side and try to find a way to make it work out with Chris Webber, I do think that Golden State Warriors team would have been a very competitive team, and I think they would have been good enough to compete for a championship. Maybe not win, but compete for a championship. I believe Ron TMC Had they kept that team together and built around those 3 guys, would have been good enough to compete for a championship. Win? Maybe, maybe not. But at least compete, but we'll never know, because Don Nelson was what you call a bad scientist. He liked to tweak things, and for real, he just, fucked up that team. Not once, but twice. And then when he came back, he was about to fuck up what they had when they went on to draft Stephen Curry. So the ownership said, nah, this guy gotta go. But yeah, that's my opinion on that Detroit team. I do think Carmelo Anthony would have won the championship had he been drafted number 2 by Detroit. Joe Dumars made a huge mistake taking Darko Milicic over Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony should have went number 2 behind LeBron James. I guarantee you, if LeBron James is not in that draft, I guarantee that Cleveland takes Carmelo Anthony number 1. Now, you've heard things about Carmelo Anthony's attitude or whatever the case may be about how he possibly is as a teammate, but at the end of the day, that's just rumors. Because I've never heard nobody really go in on Carmelo Anthony. He just come across as a dude, he stand for what he believe in. And at the end of the day, when you in the NBA, if you a dude that don't take no shit, you get quote unquote considered a bad teammate or somebody that's difficult to work with. But yeah, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think. This your boy Town Biz. I am out.